Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum. In today's Saturday horror movie review, I am joined by JR from Horror Fiend TV. And today we're going to be talking about I originally thought it was a Shudder exclusive. It's not, it came out in theaters. The movie Watcher. Not the Watcher, Watcher. Um, yeah, say hey, JR.
How's it going? You ready to get into this one?
I guess so. So we just watched this. We both just watched this recently. I saw it on Twitter. I thought it was like a Shutter original, and then it came up in something else, and they were like, "Oh no, I went." Somebody said they went and saw this in theaters. I didn't even know it went to theaters, but yeah. So I gotta go back to my. There we go. IMDb app. Okay. So let's see. This has a 6.3 out of 10 on IMDb, an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 4.2 out of 5 on Shudder, and 78% on Google.
That's not too bad.
No, it's not too bad. It's not as scattered as some of the other ones I've seen either. It seems like kind of middle ground. Yeah, so the synopsis for this one is a young American woman moves with her husband to Bucharest, I think is how you pronounce that, and begins to suspect that a stranger who watches her from the apartment building across the street may be a local serial killer decapitating women.
Hmm.
So,
Isn't that lovely?
yeah, that's what you want when you move somewhere to another country where you don't know the language or anybody or yeah, so what do you give this out of 10?
I'm gonna give this. Let me see. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. It is
Huh.
yeah, it's an interesting film. I mean, it has its ups and downs. I'm a fan of. I know you don't like It Follows,
Yeah,
but I do like Maka Monroe. I think
I like her.
she has a presence with her characters, no matter what she. I mean, It Follows was okay. Like a lot of people like it, but she did have a presence in that movie. She just has this on-screen presence that you're captivated by her,
Yeah,
which is always
she
good.
makes you want to be engaged, like
Yes.
in what she's doing. She was not my problem with It Follows.
No.
I like her too. Um, 7. That's higher than I thought you were going to give it.
Man, do I have that bad of a rep?
Yes, yes, you do. Um, yeah. So I think for my out of 10, I think I'm probably going to give it like a 6. Um, I didn't hate it. I mean, I would tell people to watch it, especially if they already have Shudder. You don't have to pay to watch it, and there's no ads. But I think like I just wanted it to have something unique about it, and I don't really feel like it did. So, so I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10 instead of. I actually originally was going to give it a 7, but then I sat on it for a couple of days, and I was like, yeah. So unspoiled. What are your unspoiled thoughts on this one?
Unspoiled thoughts. Yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of movies like this, where it's a slow burn, but it's
Yeah,
a very detailed character building slow burn, you're gonna like this film.
yeah.
I mean, you have to like slow burn character build films. If you don't, you're gonna lose interest in this one pretty quick. I
Yeah.
mean that's my unspoiled thoughts on this film as far as.
Yeah.
And I mean, who doesn't like Burn Corman? The guy's just creepy in everything he does.
Yeah. Talk about having a presence. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the best scenes, and I mean, we'll talk about it later, but the scene in the train with both of them, it's probably the best scene in the entire movie. Kind of reminded me of
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. I don't know if you ever seen the movie Heat with Al Pacino and
Yeah, of
Homer.
course. Yeah.
That scene when Al Pacino pulls over Robert De Niro. He goes, "Hey,
Yeah.
you want to go for coffee?"
Yeah,
And
that is kind of like that. Huh.
I just love it because that scene was so captivating. You had the whole back and forth, and yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this movie has a lot of good, some bad, but mostly good.
Yeah, I think I don't think I think the only acting that fell short for me was the husband. I didn't really feel like he brought very much to the table other than a reason for her to be where she was, like physically.
Yeah.
I don't think he was a very strong, and I know it's like it's not supposed to be focused on him, but like he just had like no purpose. Like I didn't feel any like anything about his existence at all. And then yeah, I wanted I think that one of the letdowns for me, and I'll talk more about this later, but is that I really wanted it to be different than what we like. I really wanted all of these things that we're learning and seeing as the movie moves. I was really wanting it to be something different in the end. Like I was expecting there to be something unique added at the end, and there
Yeah.
really wasn't. So that ending kind of fell a little bit flat for me. But yeah, I think otherwise the main two performances were really good. I actually, and I'm super picky about slow burns. So like super picky about slow burns. But I think this has a lot to do with the people who were cast, because like you said, like they they're engaging. Like you just I paid attention even when nothing was going on. And I really liked it. I really liked certain things about it. But I think, I don't know, overall I liked it. I don't think it's super unique, but
No.
I would tell people to watch it probably, I guess.
No, I think definitely should watch it. I mean, just for her performance. I mean, I like her performance. I just she is one I'll put. I'm starting to become more of a fan of her, so I would start putting her in that almost category close to the Jenna Ortegas.
Hmm.
You know who I'm going to mention. You know, Anya Taylor, Anya Taylor. Who was another one? There was another one we always talk about. Oh, and the girl from Prey.
Yeah.
I mean, I put if you put them four in a movie, a nice horror movie where I don't know, just throw them in a freaking cabin in the woods or something like that, it'll be good because they all have a presence. And yeah, she has a presence. I
Yeah.
agree with you with the husband. The husband, to use a one of Rick's favorite new words, the husband was a gimmick.
Yeah, he didn't serve any purpose.
No.
And he also was like, I just got done talking tropes. This is like super fresh in my head. One of my like least favorite horror movie tropes is the trope where like the man doesn't believe anything the woman says when there's no reason not to.
Yeah.
And he has like no faith in her, even from the very beginning. He immediately goes to, oh, you know, new country, like new life, like you're just being paranoid. Like I hate that so much. And yeah, so yeah, I didn't care for the husband. I think he was useless. You could have probably removed him and it wouldn't have changed anything.
You know what it reminded me of? Just the fact that you have this woman who is in a strange new city. I mean, she's in a different country. She's an
Yeah.
American girl, different country. You
Hmm.
start the whole isolation thing,
Yep.
the fact that she starts losing her mind. And I started thinking about Devil's Advocate with Keanu Reeves.
Oh my God.
Is almost the same thing, kind of, because I mean, not with the devil, but the fact that here he is trying to start a new career, big city, and Charlize Theron character was isolated. She was going, and then she's actually, starts going, thinking she's going crazy, hearing stuff, seeing stuff, and kind of remind me of that a little bit. So
God, that scene from that movie where she's in the is it a church?
yes,
Oh my God.
yes,
I love her. She's
she's
fantastic.
she's tremendous.
Yeah, but yeah, that's a good point. Well, and I think some of those techniques of the isolation made sense, but I still the husband right away
Yeah.
was like not invested in her emotions like at all. And I can't get behind that. That trope drives me crazy. Um that's probably all I can say about it unspoiled.
Oh, one thing before we jump,
Yeah.
the director of this film, she actually wrote it. It's based off a screenplay, but Chloe Okuna, she actually directed one of your favorite VH4 '94 anthologies.
The cyborg one?
No,
It's in
well,
94.
I think you liked it. Maybe you didn't like it.
The
The storm,
cyborg one is my favorite.
which is your least favorite?
The funeral one.
She directed the Storm Drain with the
Ratma?
record. Yes,
I love that one.
she directed that one.
That was a good one. Although
Yes.
I feel like Ratma, I think I'm saying that right,
Yeah.
is a much better story than The Tunnel, which I don't know if you've seen the found footage movie.
Yeah, the tunnel just kind of to let down at the end.
It's fucking boring. Like it took so long for anything to happen, but it gave saw it way after the fact, but it made me think of Ratma, and I was like, that's such a much better version of this.
Yeah.
So good. Stories like that need to be condensed. If you stretch them out, there's like too much room
Yeah.
for things not go right. But I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh. I
So
don't
now you
keep
got
up with the
new.
people that make them. The only ones I know, and I hate to be that person, is like the big ones, like Jordan Peele, like the really big ones. Um, yeah, I think I did like this. I think the only well, and I'll elaborate on my like my nitpick type things, but I think that the reason I rated it as high as I did is strictly because of the two our
Yeah.
protagonists and our antagonists. The two main characters are the reasons that they carried this film. You know,
Yes.
they really made it.
Oh, big time. If it was somebody else, I don't think this film would have done any good, to be honest.
I agree. I definitely think I would have rated it a lot lower. Well, because that's part of what makes that's part of what makes or breaks slow burns anyway, is
Yeah.
you have to care about what's going on when there's nothing going on. And if you're not invested in the characters, if the characters, the actors and the actresses can't pull you in, it's not going to work. It's not
Yeah.
going to be effective. And I think I don't think I've seen her in anything else. I think I've only seen her in It Follows in this.
And she's been in a bunch of movies, but this is like, I think she's only been, this is her second lead role, I think.
Okay. So, yeah, yeah, I think like, I agree. I think if it was anybody else, or I don't think it would have been as good. I agree with that. But anyway, um, yeah, should we do spoilers?
Yeah. Let's dive in and ruin it.
It's not going to ruin it. It's going to make it
No,
better.
you better watch this film. If at this point, if you're listening to us, pause it, go watch the movie.
And then come back.
Yes.
You got to say that part. Um, yeah, so I'm not going to go step for step with this one because I feel like there's a lot of lulls. So we can just talk about like the important stuff, the things that we liked and things we didn't like.
So what you didn't like? Let's start there. Besides the husband.
Besides that. Um, I really wanted the neighbor to be innocent.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
I really wanted him to be just this weird guy.
I wanted him to be the savior. Part of me wanted the
I would have
husband
been
to
good
be the
with that.
killer. And if the husband was the killer and she ended up saving him, that would have been better. The fact that you had
Yeah.
that train scene, which was a great train scene, but I think it gave too much. It gave too much when it shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And even though you had that cool scene where he's with the bag next to him and there's the head in there,
Yeah.
and I mean it was a cool visual. However, I feel
Mhm.
like they kind of ruined it at that point because up to that whole movie, the slow burn lasted all the way towards the end. I think like the last 15, 20 minutes
Yeah.
was where it really picked up. But it was just such a slow burn that
Yeah.
when you got to that point, you're like, huh. And even the fact that where he cut her, I mean, she would have bled out. I mean, that's the only big
Mhm.
nitpick I have on it because he literally cut her across her neck, the side of her neck,
Yeah.
and yet she still got up and I just that bothered me because I felt like it should have ended it right there with him. If you're gonna make him the killer, make him continue going.
Yeah, have him get away with it.
Yeah, I mean the husband just I don't know.
He's like, "Hey."
Yeah, hey you, and then starts like come
You
on.
know, and I feel like if she had died, I would have been okay with it too, because
Yes,
then the husband would have had to live with that shit forever. That's
yeah,
what you get for not listening to someone that you've pledged your life to, you fuck. Like, I was so mad. I hated his character was such a waste of space. But I think that yeah, I would have been cool with the savior concept. I know like we talked about the like I wonder if it's gonna end up being the husband, which I'm kind of glad it wasn't, simply because like that's really tropey. Like that happens all the time. It's always the partner, the boyfriend, the husband, the whatever. And I don't know what I would have done different as far as completely changing the ending. But I would have actually probably been okay if like the killer had actually ended up being somebody totally random that we had not seen before. Like I would have been probably okay with that. Like just this concept of like that would have made more sense like with her being isolated and feeling alone and being like literally alone all the time. And then she hyper fixates on this like one person that she's making this villain, and then
Yeah.
it ends up being somebody she's never even seen before. Like that would have been better for me than the way they did it, I think, because I didn't like that he ended up being the killer. Like I really, even I wanted so bad, even in the train sequence, to be like, okay, yeah, but it can still maybe not be him. Maybe it's just groceries, and but
Yeah.
like I'm still trying. I'm like hoping that's not gonna. And then it was him. I was so disappointed.
Well, remember there was a certain part where your neighbor was being friends with her. You drink and then was knocking on the door, which led you to believe at first it was possibly could have been the boyfriend, that girl's boyfriend.
Yeah,
Remember the neighbor that was she worked at the strip joint,
yeah,
but that's what I thought. And that if I was to change this film, I wouldn't have made him the killer. And the reason I think I would have made him watching in the window was because he was witnessing all these killings happening, which would
yeah.
have
That would
been
have been
better.
cool.
That would have been a different twist to this whole movie. I
Yeah,
mean,
that would have been
it's
cool.
yeah, it had a little bit too much of other films.
Hmm.
It could have been. I mean, I know I gave it a good rating, but like,
Hmm.
with the power of the two performances, that's definitely held the film. I mean, there were even some scenes that I just didn't care for, like the scene where she got all dressed up and they're drinking and he's basically talking crap about her, and then she gets pissed off, and I mean that whole scene just. And then he plays the victim. Oh, things are different. And he should have gotten killed.
Yeah, fuck him. I hated the husband. I hated him because like he wasn't around at all, and then when he was a dick, and I just like I hated it. And he's like the scene when the cop comes to their, I guess is an apartment, right?
Yeah,
He comes to the apartment and he's got the neighbor Weber, I think is his last name,
yeah,
with him. And the husband, the way he's standing there with the door is like such a dad thing. He's
yeah.
like, like I know that it's not visual, so they can't see the face I'm making, but it's like it's one of those things like, look what you got yourself into. Like he was very like looking down, like she was a child. And
Yeah.
there's so much of this, and I'm just like, I hate that so much. I hate it.
No, it was yeah. I mean, his performance is just yeah. He was just I don't know. He was just there. I mean, he's lucky he got paid for this because he should have.
He
It
just
should have
showed
been
up.
somebody. Yeah, he just showed up. I mean, there was nothing. If you're gonna make a character like that, make him someone more snobby and no, make him like Christian Bale's character, like an American Psycho. This
Hmm,
guy who's just power hungry and he thinks that
Patrick, yeah.
yeah, make him like that. I mean, I don't know. I didn't feel like him at all. I think he ruined most of the movie.
It's like in high school when you do a team project, but like everyone else carries the load and then the other person gets the A.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He just wrote his name down. That's all he did.
He just signed the page, the back page of it. Well, and I think like I know we talked about the concept of like maybe him having an affair. Like he just had no depth. There's like nothing
No,
going on with him. It drove me nuts. That and the ending, I think, were the two weakest things because I think
yeah.
if you're going to have a husband character, he needs to be utilized. He was just taking up camera space.
Like I would have had him. I don't know. I would have had him have an affair with the neighbor to really get it, put a more of a twist to it.
And then have the neighbor be the killer.
Yeah, I mean
Then at
they
least
could have
there's
went
a motive.
so many different ways. And when the Weaver character broke and became the killer, I, I just didn't. I didn't want to buy it. I mean, I do think the best visual scene was when she's laying there and he lays down next to her.
That was really cool. And
I
they're like
loved it.
almost touching, like their hands are
Yeah,
like that was a really cool scene. So I do think this film is shot really well. Like I think it's very well. Like the scenes, like the way that the camera angles work for the moments of those paranoia scenes, like when she
yeah.
goes to the store, when she's at the movie theater, even when and the train and the final scene, all of it, all of those moments, I think are shot really well in ways that made you feel a little uncomfortable or made you have like an emotional reaction to what you were seeing, which I think is another reason that I was still engaged with it, even being like a slower burn.
Well, one of the things that like I'm still learning as as a aspiring indie filmmaker is
Hmm.
a lot of the shots. If you have this widescreen shot, and like every time she goes to the window, she's only covering she's like to the far right of the whole shot, and you have all this opening. That just shows the isolation that she's in, that she's alone in
Hmm.
this new world. Now,
Hmm.
I'm a massive fan of lighting, and the lighting of this film was tremendous.
It was good.
I mean, I'm becoming a fan of this Chloe Okuna. I mean, I love the way she directs. I mean, the shots are all. I mean, who didn't like the Storm Drain? I mean, that whole film was pretty cool in VHS. But
Yeah.
I mean, Vern Gorman. I mean, still, the guy is
Yeah.
just for a guy to have minimal dialogue and still take center stage in his scenes. I mean, the guy's just good. I mean, that whole scene like you were talking about when he came with the cop, he's sitting there with his head down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love that scene because he's like sitting there. He was too afraid to look up, and it almost felt at a certain time where maybe he had something where he was intimidated by women, and maybe that's why he's killing them. Maybe that's why he cut the heads off because that way they're not looking at him. You know, but
Mm.
yeah, I mean, there could have been more they could have dived into if you're going to make him the killer, because
Yeah.
we as horror fans, we kind of want to know the reason behind somebody doing this. And if they would have gotten a little bit, look, you don't have to go over the top, but
Yeah.
a
It has
little
to be
bit
like
more,
yeah.
give a slight reason. Even that conversation when he's sitting there talking to her, saying that, listen, I wasn't going to bother you, but then you started harassing me.
Which made me feel like, okay, maybe it really isn't him.
Uh, Yeah, because she's the one that, oh, he's looking out the window. I mean, granted, the whole time after the fact is when we find out he kills the neighbor. I'm like, all right, so the whole time he could have been watching the neighbor, planning to kill her.
And
But
then,
here's Julia, basically putting herself in between him and his basically victim, which drove
yeah.
him mad.
Yeah. That's a good point. I think, like, I think he kind of reminds me of, and this is a bit of a stretch, but I think you'll understand why I'm saying this. He kind of reminds me of the guy in Sling Blade.
Yeah,
That he's like, but part of his like timid nature, and I really did for a little while was like, man, she really is like the problem. Like, what is this really saying? Is this like a statement about paranoia, or like I didn't understand. Like I was like, I wonder. Like I think when I did my little short review for YouTube, I was like, it's very much like a it has these moments where it feels like it's basically pointing out what it feels like to be a female, like walking alone at night or
mhm.
going to do something by yourself, or like what that feels like. But I don't know. I think I do think that the way that it's shot and the acting are definitely like the two biggest strengths, and I think the ending is definitely one of the biggest weaknesses. I
Yeah,
also thought it was kind of weird because they're like supposed to be back in his home country, right? Like he's from there.
yeah,
And it didn't feel like that. It felt like two Americans like were, because like he had no family, like there, I mean, and I guess maybe that's because of the isolation, but they could have used things like that to make it even more so too. Like if he goes and sees his family while he's there and she goes with him, and they're speaking together and she can't understand them, or which
yeah.
happens with other people. But I feel like with people that she married into their family like that, there's some pieces here that like they could have put in and added and taken some of that empty space away, and it would have felt better, I think, and overall.
Yeah, because you didn't know exactly what she did. I mean, so you moved to another country with your husband.
Hmm.
What is it you do? What is she's not looking for jobs. She's wandering around. I mean, she's like, and then the only thing that captivates her is this guy who she thinks is looking. And there's another scene too when he's sitting there talking. He he felt more disrespected by everything she was doing. So he had almost like I don't know, like almost like a moral, because remember is a moral the right word I'm looking at? Thinking about, but it was all right. So, for example, he was like, you started harassing me.
Hmm.
You sent somebody to my house to yell at my dad. So he played all these things like like
Yeah.
you were the troublemaker, and you felt bad for me. You're like, all right, so Jesus, woman, you're over here buying the crap out of this dude.
Yeah. Leave him alone.
So it's one of those things like, did she get what she deserved for continually
For
harassing?
interjecting herself into the situation.
Yeah,
Yeah. I also didn't like the boyfriend scene. I thought that didn't make any sense.
and then
Who in their right? Okay. I guess I'm trying so hard to like rationalize that scene because I don't know if I can. So like she makes friends with the neighbor. The neighbor's boyfriend is like a problem.
right,
And but not really. She's like not scared of him. She just wants him to like leave her alone. And he keeps showing up anyway. And he says, oh, like she says she's going to do these things and then she doesn't show up. And then they have this conversation. And he randomly, the first time he's ever met her, goes across the street with her to go into this building to beat on this guy's door and say all these things to him. And like, that's not realistic at all. Like, why would he give a shit about any of that? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Like, I didn't understand. Like, that didn't add anything. Or I don't know. It just didn't make any sense.
I think you what made it worse is the fact that if you're gonna do a film like this from a different country, you should have subtitles in certain parts of the film.
So you can understand what they're
Yeah, that
saying.
whole scene where he's yelling and you don't know what he's saying.
And he doesn't tell her the truth
No,
either. He just
no. I told him leave me alone.
summarizes. Yeah.
I mean, there was certain. I'm a bit international,
Yeah.
movie person, but to not
Yeah.
have those subtitles, you're like, all right, why are you doing this? Why would you hide what was said? And this way, as a viewer, we were like, all right, so he said this to the guy, went back, didn't tell her the truth, so he's really a jerk and asshole, And
Yeah.
I mean, the minute she went up to him, I was like, all right, now she's asking for even more trouble because you don't know what this dude gonna do.
She doesn't know who he is.
Oh,
Yeah, it's weird. And even though the neighbor was like, "Oh, like I've got a gun, I can handle it." Like, why would she even feel the need to say that if there wasn't like a
yeah.
risk of him being dangerous? Like that whole thing didn't make any sense. I think like I was thinking watching it, and I was like, "What? Why is he doing that? That doesn't make any sense." I hate it. Yeah.
The weird part too is how many serial killers actually kill in their own neighborhood like that. They
Mhm.
usually go a little further to avoid any kind of, I mean, granted, I know it's a massive apartment complexes they live in, but still,
Yeah.
that was a question I had. It's like, why would he kill in his own neighborhood, putting himself possibly in this position to be accused of stuff like that?
Well, I think part of it is probably because he couldn't go too far from his dad. He like talked about like taking care of his dad a lot, and I don't think he was as confident as he tried to come across. Like he came across like like there's a couple things he says to her specifically where he's like, oh, like he just says things that make you think he's got like some confidence. But I don't think he does.
No,
And I think like the only thing I can think of logically is that he was too afraid to go too far away.
no, he lives with his dad. Mother's probably not around, so
Yeah.
probably
Oh,
definitely
that might
has
be why he
women
decapitates
issues.
women.
Yeah, mommy issues.
That's usually the reason. Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to think what other scene I didn't like in this film. Yeah, that's it. I mean, the slow burn. There are dips in the film where
Mhm.
you feel like you don't need those parts, and I think what they could have did even more is show the how they're separating from each other a little bit more.
Yeah.
They did in certain parts, but then they didn't. The scene where you saw the full separation kind of was when basically he insulted her at the party.
Yeah. I think yeah, he would have
Yeah,
his nose broke.
I mean, and the fact that the other women are there, like okay with it. I mean, would you really be okay with another dude talking junk to? I mean, I don't know. This is that whole scene was just dumb.
It was awkward and it didn't add anything.
Mm.
I think the only reason that scene even exists is maybe an attempt to add to the isolation thing and then to set us up for the train scene. That's it. But there could have been other ways to do it. She could have had to meet him there because he's such an absent figure. Like it could have been a situation where she had to like take the train to go meet him because he couldn't be bothered to come get her. And then on the way there, that event happens, and she ends up going home instead. Or that could have been played in a different way that would have made it more effective overall. I hated the husband. This and it's I'm fine with like shitty partners exist in the real world. Like I'm fine with that, but it needs to make sense for the story, and he didn't have enough of a purpose for me. So any scene that had to do with him, I was like checked out.
Yeah. Yeah, after talking
He's
about
such a
that,
dick. Like I just can't even imagine she like for her to be so not confrontational, I guess.
she's
So
very
like
passive.
so determined. Well, she had these moments where she was like so determined to be like stronger, like she just to put up this like thing like I'm not gonna be like I don't know,
Yeah.
this like stronger persona that she put on it. There's certain points in the movie that she did that. She should have been putting that up with her husband, like if I just moved to another country with you and you just completely abandoned me, you don't believe anything I'm saying, you talk shit at a work party, I'm going home. Like I'm
Oh,
going home. Like I don't.
it's one of those things that you feel like now looking back at it though, they should have taken advantage of the trains instead of showing her walk. If she
No.
went someplace, I think she should have took the train more often to even expand more on the whole isolation that she's by herself on the train,
Mm-hmm.
and she has to basically go from point. I mean, I know it's nitpicking, but a little small like that, things like
Would
that
have
go a
made it
long way.
stronger.
Yeah, they go a long way because she's exploring a city on her own to the point they have no transportation but the train.
Yeah.
And then you could have had basically the Weaver guy, here and there on the train, different moments, add to the whole. Are you,
In the
you
Yeah,
harassing me?
had him already on the train when she gets on, or have him in the background behind her, but not like a focal point of
Yeah.
the shot yet. Things like that. Yeah. Those little things would have made a huge difference, I think. Um, I feel like like all we've done is complain about it. That's all you do is complain.
No, but
um,
I like. All right, so I know this is my reputation lately, but
lately.
yes, I can appreciate a film, but I do have to look at it that could be almost perfect, but there's certain, I don't know if it's lazy writing or lazy acting or just something that disconnects the film for some time that you lose interest of it, or there's something you're like, oh, I've seen that before. Like
Yeah.
I know Rick Kills Me, Rick and Joe on Three Corners of Horror, they gave X such a good rating, and I gave it an okay rating, and they killed me for it because while yeah, it was a good movie at certain points, when a movie is hyped and I seen things already. I think for me, it kills the movie because all right, so you're hyping the movie, then I've seen stuff already like this. We've seen these isolation things before. We've seen these, killer in the same, the killer always looking like a weird loner, which is another
Yeah.
thing they do. But it's I gotta look at both sides of it. Like for me, another thing I think I would have did in this one is even give a higher kill count, more victims,
Yeah.
because from he's labeled a serial killer, but technically there was only two kills in the movie.
Yeah, they allude to there being more, but they only actually talk about two.
Yeah,
Because it's like, oh yeah, the attacks. Like they say, like the attacks, and then there was like one murder, and then the next door neighbor was the second one.
it should have been a lot more. That way you're captivating now the audience even more. So like,
Yeah.
all right, so every time she's on the train, she has the potential to possibly be a victim. So it's little things like that. That's my nitpicks in movies. I mean, this movie could have been a lot better if it had those kills in it or that tension building where I don't know, maybe some of the kills could have been done like in the the train stations. Really just let the
Yeah.
cat.
Yes.
But that's for me. I mean, I know I have a good reputation of being a hard ass.
But I do think like I'm not as like hard to please as far as like movies like you are, but I think we are similar in the fact that like those last few points. So like on like I give sevens more than I think I give any other rating. Those last couple of points that get you to like the top tier stuff is so hard to get from me. And you're similar. Like you'll give things like well, I know you guys do out of like five, but like you're harder about getting those last couple of things that like get you to that high. And I'm the same way. Like I give sevens seriously like more than I've given anything else. Like I don't and I think like because I did have so many gripes about this one, I couldn't give this one a seven. Like even though I did like it and there's things about it that I like, I felt like my seven is like my pretty good number. Like if it's a seven, I think it's pretty good, and then but I couldn't give this a seven. I think like and so all of these negative things, right? Here's some things that I did like about it. I do think that it did have a really good atmosphere, kind of going back
Mhm.
to talking about like how it was shot. The theater, okay, so being a female, some of those sequences felt very familiar to me. I don't go to the theater by myself because I don't really like to do anything by myself, but
Yeah.
I can't bring myself to go to a theater by myself. But if I did, I would be super paranoid about people around me. And that's not just because I'm a female doing things by myself, but there have been really bad things that have happened in theaters. And I like, so like her moments like that, like when she's at the store, I definitely pay attention to my surroundings. If I see someone too many times or a car has made too many weird turns, like not to sound like a paranoid freak, but like I pay attention to stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so especially now, like I pay attention to that stuff. And so like those moments to me, they felt very realistic. I didn't feel yet that she was being overly paranoid. I mean, if you see this person, you know who this person is, like they were just in the theater. You saw their shoes, like this is the same person. That would make me uncomfortable. And I think those moments are kind of like they're built really well because I was uncomfortable, which is what I was meant to feel.
For me, the scenes where you had just the quiet
Mm,
were
yeah.
just so captivating because, like the
Hmm.
one where she's standing in the window and she's just looking from one side to the other. She sees him, steps back into like the darkness a little bit.
Hmm.
You can't see him, but she's still saying that. I mean, those quiet scenes were so good in this film
Hmm.
because they allow the tension to build up, and you're like, all right, what she's gonna do next? I mean,
Yeah, you're waiting for
yeah,
something. Yeah.
for her to become the Watcher as well. I mean, I like that whole back and forth where she's looking, are you looking at me? Even that one scene where
Hmm.
um the husband wakes up, he goes, oh, what are you looking at? He goes, right there. She goes, right there. There's somebody watching, but the lights are off. She's like,
And she's like, no, he's there.
he's yeah, he's still looking. He's right
Yeah.
there. I mean that those like scenes like that. I mean those are so good because you don't get many of those like that.
Yeah,
And
and the waving was like because she waves and he doesn't do anything.
mhm,
And then just as she looks away, he raises his hand and I was like, "Ooh," like that was
mhm,
really good. I liked
yeah.
that. It was paced like just the right amount of time for me to be like unsettled by it.
Now, how long was this movie?
Mm, hour and 40.
See, I could have probably trimmed at least some 10, 15 minutes off
Damn,
it.
I'm good. Hour 35.
And they could have trimmed like 10 minutes of this film.
Yes. I think yeah, hour and a half is probably pretty good for most thriller type movies like this.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit more of him too. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, Bern Gorman as the Watcher Weaver. I mean, the scenes he shows up in are good. I mean, he like doesn't have a lot of dialogue, but when he speaks, it hits you, and it's like you're captivated by it. That you almost want him to sit there and have a longer conversation. Because
Yeah, you're
even that,
kind of left wanting more. I agree.
yeah, because that train scene where they're talking, and she gets up and leave, and the camera shows him just still sitting there looking at her. I mean,
Yeah.
that scene was cool too. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you're talking about like the quiet moments. He really doesn't say very
Mm-mm,
much
he
at
doesn't.
all.
Even when he attacks her at the end, he doesn't really talk much to her. The whole conversation out in training after that, I was like, all right, I'm gonna get you. And that whole sequence, yeah, it's funny because she leaves and you're in the minds. All right, he knows where you live, so it's not like you're
Yeah,
gonna
it's not
go.
like, yeah. Not only did he know sort of before, he really knows because he's already been at
Yeah,
your door.
yeah.
And if he's paying attention, he knows your damn husband's gone all the time. Yeah.
It's definitely. I mean, I do recommend this film to watch.
Yeah.
If you watch it, understand it's a slow burn,
Hmm.
but it's done for character building. I don't mind the character building slow burns.
Hmm.
They do work when done correctly.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely watch this movie.
Yeah. I think it was like, it's hard because like I don't typically mind when things are not unique, like, like, okay, we've seen this, a million times before, like, but it just had, I think it had enough uniqueness that it did keep me pretty engaged most of the film. I do agree it could have been shorter. I don't know. There's a few things they could have done to just make it more effective, but I do like her. I like both of the main characters. And that sequence that you talked about earlier, where after he's cut her and she's like laid out on the floor bleeding out, that was a really cool scene.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
is. All
So
right, would you do a second watch?
no.
No. Yeah, there's not much to catch between those watch.
Not unless like, I don't know, if like my best friend wanted to really watch it and she just wanted someone to watch it with her, I probably would, but I'd be on my phone most of the time, I think.
I'll definitely have probably one. Yeah, I'd be on my phone.
Yeah, I don't think it has a lot of rewatch value.
No.
It's pretty plain Jane as far as story and stuff goes. Pretty linear, I think is the correct word to use. Um, yeah. We already talked about what we would change. That was like the first that was like the first thing we talked about. So first of all, I would change all of this.
Not a bad habit of mine.
Yeah. Well, and you look at it so differently. I mean, I always have things that I would most things that I would change too, but like you look at it so differently than I do.
Yeah,
Like,
it drives Rick and Joe crazy.
yeah, it gets on my nerves too sometimes, but oh,
But they're valid points, though. It's not like I just make up.
sometimes they're valid points. Calm down. Sometimes, not
I
all the
would
time.
say like 95%.
95% that they're not, I agree. Um, anyway, yeah. So I think that's all I have to say on Watcher.
I agree. I think we
Yeah.
covered everything.
A lot of dislikes, but they did have some good. And I do feel like people who really like movies like this probably won't tear it apart like we did. I'm not like a slow burn person. I'm not like, I mean, I like thriller type horror movies, but it was so thriller that it was almost not horror. You know what I mean? And like I need more like blood and drama.
No, even the other one I recommend people to watch is the You Won't Be Alone, which is a slow burn, but
Don't watch that.
I'm not hyping the film. You watched it? You Won't Be Alone
Yeah.
with the girl from Prometheus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a slow burn, but it's the reason I recommend
That's
that
the
film.
witch one, right? Where
Yeah,
she's like cursed as a baby and then
yeah. The only reason I recommend that film is I think it's just different the way they did the whole witch thing.
I cannot believe that you said that was going to be on like your top list for the year.
I The reason I put it on my top list is because it's so different from anything I watch, and it's visually beautifully done. It's a timepiece. If you don't like timepieces, you're not gonna like this movie either.
That's not true. I like timepieces.
But no, but you won't be alone.
I said when we did Black Phone on y'all's channel, I said I'm gonna fucking hate that movie. I know I am. And then I watched it and I was like, is he serious?
It's a different type of film, though. You gotta admit that.
Yeah, I think you're a gimmick. You're like, nobody's gonna want to watch this. I'm gonna put it on the top list. So that's our thoughts on Watcher 2022. I gave it a 6. JR gave it a 7.
Definitely watch it.
Yeah, we both said you should watch it. It's on Shudder. I think that's the only place it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's all I have for this one. So thanks for listening, I guess, hanging out with us. Next Saturday, the review is on Nope. Mike and I are going to be talking about Nope. Mike has a lot of very detailed thoughts on the movie Nope. So it should be a fun conversation. But
Should be a
anyway,
good one.
yeah. Hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend. Enjoy your week coming up, and we will see you in the next one.
Take it easy, everybody.